thank you for coming on today. I just, as we've been working together and talking about all these topics that I educate people on and support them in their businesses with, I know you have sort of implemented some of these concepts in your business.
I
And
have. I've had a little cheat sheet.
I was so excited to talk with you about it, and also your team member Alex, and hear about the ways that you've been using systems. It's the systems day
Yes.
today. So tell me about. I know originally when we started talking about my business and trying to put it all into a social setting, that
Yeah.
you had said to me that the word systems, I think you had said that it was something you really had never heard before or weren't sure exactly what that was. So tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's because I'm a millennial or maybe because my background is not in business. But I had never heard of the concept or the term. Obviously, it makes sense to write down what you do, but I've never heard the term system, like, and not in the way of what it actually means within your business, as far as to writing down what you're doing. So then that way it can be duplicated essentially by someone else. And so in our sessions, when we were talking with you and having just kind of candid conversations in order to get copy for your social media posts, obviously I'm taking in what you're saying. And so, yes, whenever my team and we meet on a weekly basis, and it was, I want to say immediately after our session with you, our very next, because we meet on Mondays, our very next like Monday meeting, team meeting, I was like, so we're going to be writing down what it is that we do for clients and how we do it. And it showed me two things, or probably multiple things, but two things come to mind in particular. One, so obviously I have different services, right? So one service in particular is straight up copywriting for social. That's all we do. We have about an hour to an hour and a half session with clients to where we ask them particular questions in order to derive the copy that we need for 60 days worth of content, right? So they're like extremely happy because they're like, what? I don't have to think about what I'm writing on social media for 2 months? Yes.
Yes, I can attest to this. Oh,
So, and then they do video, they do their own stuff. But in writing down my system for how I do that, it let me know, Shayla, you don't have to do this job anymore.
ah,
Like, oh, these are the questions that I ask. This is the way that we do it. Here's the template. I'm like, I can hire someone else for this and then go and get more clients and go do something else in my business. So I was like, heck yes, doing that in May. So that is something I'm excited for. So if there's any copywriters listening, definitely chime in, leave your email below because I will be contacting you. But yeah, like, cool. I don't have to do this anymore.
mhm.
So that's one. Secondly, it let me know that in another service that I provide, which is social media management, which is what I'm doing for you, it showed me in writing down everything that we do a lot. And I was just like, okay, so that can be a good and a bad. I think it's good that I'm realizing it now, so that way I make sure I have certain things in place, so that way this process is as seamless as possible for my team and for the client, because they're coming to us because they want us to take care of their social media management. So we need to make sure that our communication is effective, short, sweet, and to the point to them. It's user-friendly as possible, etc. Right? And so, yeah, and just writing everything down, we're realizing that, like I said, we're doing a lot, and that there are certain, I don't want to say loopholes, but there are certain things that like we didn't pay attention to with other clients, and now writing it down, we're like, ooh, we forgot to do this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then it's interesting too, because as new clients come in, we're going through, our process, and it's like, oh, this is working, check, check, check. And then when we hit a road bump, we're like, oh, we need to go back to line number 5 because that did not work like how we thought it would. So it's kind of interesting because it's like we're we know how to run the business, but in writing down your systems and then almost doing like a checks and balances, right, with your clients, it almost feels like you're building it as you're flying it. And so it's a little uncomfortable, but yeah, that's been my experience thus far.
That's super exciting because that's
Yeah.
exactly what I hope. And this is why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. This is exactly I think when you talk about systems, it's kind of like either people don't know or they're like, I don't think that's
Yeah.
exciting.
So
But when you talk
actually,
about the value, right? Like what it
yeah,
really does for you.
yeah, and I think in me talking, the word that I use and my team use is process. What is your business process? What is your process? So it's like we don't know systems, but we know what's your process. Like that's the term that we use. And so, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I know we were talking about like why I don't know that word, but I think it's because I'm more familiar with process versus systems. So
Well, it's interesting that you say that. It's probably time for me to incorporate some different words into my language. Talk about this a little bit, but I've realized I say the word system so much that
yeah,
it just rolls off my tongue. But in
right.
working with you, I've learned that it doesn't necessarily equate to what people
Mhm.
understand.
Mhm.
And like you say, but process or procedure, they get
Right,
that, right? And of
right.
course, the value is, as you said, the ability to take yourself out of what it is that you're doing, because without that set of instructions
Right.
to hand to someone else and teach them
Mhm.
from and allow them to use it as their guideline, you're just
Right.
doing the thing over and over and
Mhm.
over, and that you can't do that and grow a business at the same time.
Right.
You'll hit
Right.
that ceiling. So I'm so
Mhm.
excited that you
Yes.
got
Yes.
that. That's so
Yes.
great. And you were able to do this very quickly, it sounds like, because we were just talking about this, maybe 6 weeks ago. And here you
Yeah.
are, like, already taking yourself out of that job and doing it.
Right. And I'm just like, let's go.
Oh my gosh. This
Yeah.
is so, I can actually feel it on this is what I live for. I live to
Yeah.
see people be successful through these concepts that I teach and then I understand.
Mhm.
And you, of course, are helping me to put this in words out into the world so people can make use of it. So this is a great
Yeah.
conversation.
No, seriously, because it's like if you guys, for those who are listening, if you need a business coach, someone to, because sometimes it's just better to have like an outside person kind of just, give you a bird's eye view of your business. Becky is genius for that because then she can just go in and ask you a couple of questions as far as like what it is that you're doing, and then really make you think as far as if you're utilizing your resources um, in a way that's like most effective, aka that's making you the most money. Because that's really what we're here to do. Like, and I think sometimes, especially millennials, we may get caught up in like, oh, this is a passion project, or oh, it's just something I do on the side. And it's just like, okay, but your time is and should be used effectively. And so even if it is something that you're doing on the side, like make sure it's worth your while, like financially.
Oh gosh, you are speaking my language. You are so right. And thank you for those kind words. You're so sweet. I
Of course.
I live for this stuff. I really, really do. And it just makes me so happy that and really just so you've taken this information in about 6 weeks or so and really made some serious changes and can see a bigger future even sooner for your business than maybe
Yeah.
you had imagined. But tell me about how much time it took you. People, when we start talking about, oh, write your process down, people are like, oh my gosh, I have so many things going on. Do I even have time? And what's the value?
Yeah.
So we already talked about the value, but tell me about the time and
Yeah.
the energy you put into that. I want to know
Yeah.
how that works.
So we have team meetings, like I said, every Monday. And we probably spend anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes reviewing it. And then my team has access to the document, and it's just a Google Doc. Like it's nothing fancy. Like there's no pictures on it, like nothing. I'm like, no, what are we doing? Step 1, 2, 3, who does what, who sends what to what email do they use, etc. So but yeah, so on Mondays, we spend about 15, 20 minutes or so just like reviewing it, high level overview. And throughout the week, they already have access to that document, and it is their responsibility to update it as need be. So for example, say if we got through like line 5 or whatever the previous week, we review maybe 6, 7, and 8. And then I'll leave a marker on there to say, okay, start here at our next team meeting. And so they know to work through 6, 7, and 8 for the week. I leave it up to them. And me, I probably spend maybe about an hour a week on it, but that's just because I'm doing other stuff. But what you will realize is, depending on what you're doing, because that's the other thing, like you have to be, there is no surefire way of, oh, step 1, you start, like, no, it's just how do you complete whatever the task is. And so, for example, for social media management, our step 1 is to have an initial consultation. So that's our step 1. It's like, we got to do that first. And within that initial consultation, we look to see if we listen to what the client's current social media needs are, what their goals are, and if they align with what we provide. Because at that point, it's like, if they're trying to do something else, we're like, okay, we don't even need to get you through step 12. So if they are good, then it's like, cool, then you automatically move to step 2. We send you a contract that's good for 7 days. It is up to you to sign it and to then make your initial investment. Once that's done, then we roll them into our client management. So it's just like literally step by step. And it gets into the weeds of things, so to speak, once we're like, because this is a 3-month service, that's the other thing. So it's like, this system is a bit longer for us to write out. So yeah, and so to answer your question though I only work on it maybe about an hour a week, I've been doing it though for the past 6 weeks. So it's taken a longer time. Whereas that other service I was telling you about, that is, it's only like an hour to an hour and a half session with the client, and it's a one-time thing. I wrote that system in a day.
Oh, wow. That's great.
It was just, I asked, a series of questions, yes. And so I had to write that down. And that even gave me clarity, because it's like, okay, what questions can I ask that are a little bit more generic that will still produce the same type of content that I need to hear from the client? Mm-hmm. So then that way the copywriter can go in and do what they need to do.
I love it. That is such great information. I think that's wonderful. And I mean, really, an hour a week is not ridiculous.
It's not a lot. You're doing it anyway. Like if you're watching Netflix or something like that, or even a regular television show, when the commercials come on, especially too, since I just use a Word document, you have Google Docs on your phone. And so it's like when the commercials come on, open up your Google Docs, type a little bit of stuff, and then when the television, your series comes on, then you watch it. So
that's great. That's awesome. I love that. My daughter is a millennial, young one also, and she loves the Google Docs. I get a little lost in Google Docs personally. So when I do mine, I use just Word document, and I also like a recorded, like I can talk to my phone and have it transcribe. I use those little apps and things, because a lot of times I do my best thinking when I'm like in my barn with my horses, or if I'm in the car driving. So yeah, just to get it out of my head. Now, right now, I'm not sharing with other team members and building my system, so it's really just me. But really, it's just getting it out of your head, right? And documenting it.
No, seriously. I'll be honest. I didn't know that you do the audio, but I hope you saved that, because content. Okay, cool. I'm like, you're sitting on an audio book. What are you talking about?
I know. Well, sometimes it's a little disjointed, but I actually just use like talk to text, or I use an Otter app or something that I can talk to it while I'm walking around or driving, and it'll put it in relative enough format that I can plug it into a Word document later. But getting it out of my head right then is it's so important.
Yeah. But no,
we lose it sometimes, especially that works for ideas as well as for process systems. So
of course. Yeah.
Well, I am so thankful for you and for your time and for sharing this. It just makes me so excited.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Growing your business with a simple nuts and bolts idea.
Yeah, it is a very simple idea, but it's when you actually apply it in your business, you're like, okay, this is a beast. Like,
it is a beast.
It's a beast, but in a good way, because even too, because it will show you when you're writing. Sorry, last thing.
Oh no, please.
It will show you when you're writing down things where you can outsource, because maybe you can't give the entire project away, but you can outsource a certain stem of what it is that you do. So then that way, because maybe your turnaround time, okay, let me finish the thought. Maybe your turnaround time is 2 weeks by you doing it, but if you outsource maybe that tag, that line or whatever, it bumps it down from 2 weeks to 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's phenomenal, because that means you're running people through your system quicker. Prime example, in social media management, we all know you need graphics, right? Graphics, you got to have them. You can put them at the intro to a video. You can have them on Instagram. If you create a PDF, etc., you have graphics all day long. I was creating those graphics. And so sometimes that turnaround time would be longer than what needed to be, or I was stressed, or just didn't want to do it, to be honest.
Sure.
And I realized in writing out my systems, I'm like, I can give this to someone else and, of course, approve the designs, put my little flair to it. But the turnaround time went from 1 week to like 2 days.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, cool. I have more time because clients are done quicker. So instead of a client, being with me for 2 weeks, now they're only with me for a week. And so it's just like, okay, cool. And now I'm over here twiddling my thumbs like, I guess I need to get more clients because I've already met my bottom line in like 3 weeks versus 4. And so I have that extra week to like go and get more clients. So I'm excited. And this is right on time. Very last thing. I told my team that I wanted us to hit a 5-figure month. Like that's our goal. And so it's just like, I really believe that by the end of the quarter, we will have that. So I'm very excited. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. I mean, you really took this concept and just ran with it. And this is an aside. I know you're building a course on Canva right now. And I'm curious, and I want you to tell us about that, but I'm curious, did that course come from your having, like you were just talking about, you can give out the chore or the task of design. So, did that come from this idea?
A little bit. So it's like I already knew that I wanted to do group coaching. I realized though in writing down the systems that there were certain pieces that I did really well. I'm like, okay, how can I capitalize on these? And then not one-on-one, because that's the other thing. Because I'm like, okay, by doing things one-on-one, like I said, now I have a shorter client time, but I'm like, I still want to maximize my time. Because I have extra time now. Because I'm like, okay, things are running kind of smoothly. Like I can have a cup of coffee in the morning. Like this is nice, right?
Meet Becky for coffee and talk about this.
Right. And so I'm like, this is interesting. And so, so because I have now, and I feel like I need to knock on wood or something, but because I have free time right now, I'm like, okay, let me utilize that effectively. And because I looked at my systems, I saw the things that I was outsourcing, and then I saw the things that were left. And like I said, it was either because I was really passionate about those items or I'm just really good at it. And then I'm like, okay, well, how can I capitalize on these and then deliver it in a group setting? And then of course, make another stream of income. So that's where all of this came from. And so, in the brand boot camp, what we'll be doing is spending 2 weeks exclusively on storytelling and how to tell your story on social. One, you get like clarity on what it is that you do, so that way you can say it eloquently and not, be stumbling over your words. And then week 2, we'll be looking at, okay, how to take that story and now leverage it on social, because there's certain ways that you have to write your copy. Like, for example, no one's going to read a 5-sentence paragraph. Like they're just not. And so you have your hook, like your main sentence, and then like bullet points with emojis, and then you have a clear call to action. And so we're going to be talking about that week 2. And then the last 2 weeks of the boot camp is Canva and how to tell your story through Canva, right? Because you can tell your story through design. Yeah, so it's just like we'll be utilizing your brand aesthetics, looking at your colors and your fonts. and how they evoke a particular emotion, and how to leverage that. So for example, for Becky, one of her colors, her brand colors, is like an evergreen color. You will notice on her template, whenever there's a call to action like that says click here or read below, she's going to have that in green, because green is going to motivate you to do something. So you'll learn stuff like that, how to leverage that across your social media platform, and even your website, should you choose to create that in Canva. So, yeah.
I love that. Will you drop a link for us after this video?
Of course.
So that we can
Yes.
come and see what you have going on. I love this for you,
Yes.
Shayla, because for me, it's been life-changing. You know, you taught me how to, we've been together off and on for a good period of time. You helped me to get a lot of my ideas out of my head and onto paper. And that was gold. It was super gold. Even now, this many months, years, actually, a year and a half later, we're still referring back to that piece of gold. And then, of course, you helped me to establish my brand colors and stuff. And I've loved that. And then now, you know, as I have the opportunity to use your services on a more regular basis, we're just implementing all that. But what I wanted to say to you was, you know, one of the comments that I'm getting from people is how nice and cohesive my presentation on social media has become. And that is, of course, all you. And I just want to tell the world that if you have the opportunity to meet with Shayla and work with her and do the boot camp, you definitely want to do that. So drop your link if you would.
Thank you. I will. I definitely will.
Thank you for coming on for this.
Of course. Of course. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear about your experience with my concept of systems. And I like the word process. I think that's a little bit less intimidating for sure. I love that. And for sharing how that is really changing your business and helping you just springboard it to the next level.